not trash map. It's a great map. I actually love the maps in this
You're
game.
right.
Besides
I
Jungle
don't know why
Flooded.
they picked that bullshit.
Hey, don't down talk Arsenal. Now you can down talk Arsenal Sandstorm. Arsenal's a good map.
Y'all be picking the biggest maps possible.
This ain't even a big
For
map, bro.
real.
I can't wait to start stabbing them though. It's gonna be so much fun. I haven't played this game in forever. I'm probably gonna be awful in terms of
I like being
shooting the
able
ballistic knife.
to.
Oh, whoa. Dude went outside of the map. I was not expecting that.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. I completely choked that. Nope. Don't kill me, bro. No, what? Oh, okay. This is voodoo right here. Oh, dude, his doggy.
Fractured and Alterac Valley was a bad expansion. There is a reason that's been going on for a little bit now that has basically stopped Trump from enjoying Constructed. This is something that I have been feeling a lot more recently as new expansions get released and the design philosophy as Hearthstone has changed a little bit, but I am sure that Trump will come back from the next expansion when there is something new to try. But in the meantime, let's discuss why Trump isn't playing Hearthstone. Now, if you don't know who Trump is or need a little bit of a refresher, Trump is one of the OG content creators when it comes to classic Hearthstone and has been playing the game all the way up till Fractured and Alterac Valley. Trump is known from his Trump teachings to his standard decks to his wacky arena adventures. Trump has basically been the grandfather when it comes to a lot of the Hearthstone content that we see today. But what makes Trump so special in terms of Hearthstone is his play style and what he liked to do in the game. If you ask yourself what type of deck does Trump enjoy playing the most, a lot of people would say a slower kind of control deck, and that's exactly right. He is the mayor of Value Town for a reason. But as of recently, we have not seen a ton of value decks in Hearthstone. A lot of the decks in the game seem to want to kill their opponents as fast as possible, and this includes the new control decks in the metagame where they're often trying to find a win condition that ends the game quicker than rather exist in Hearthstone, and they don't seem like they're coming back anytime soon, which is super weird because before the release of Demon Hunter, we basically saw some type of deck in every single metagame that was a play style with control attrition. The last time we had a deck like this was in Rise of Shadows with the Dr. Boom control mech warrior, and that seems like an absolute lifetime ago. But the reason why they didn't make these decks again is because a lot of players don't like playing against them, and when a game lasts more than 25 minutes, it starts to have a concern for the player base that games are too long and they don't want to play the game anymore. And with the Dr. Boom Mad Genius warrior from Rise of Shadows, we saw this at the most extreme where games could last up to 45 minutes if it was a mirror match. And this isn't the only type of deck that really showcased why people don't like attrition based decks, but this is the most extreme example and was definitely the turning point in design. We saw a lesser extent of this during the Forge the Baron's control priest, but this isn't really the same thing as attrition because this was a lot of random generation and much more frustrating to play against. So rather than building these attrition based decks in Hearthstone, we have seen control decks which still exist in the format, just a much different version of control. But the issue is if you don't actually include attrition based decks in the format anymore, you're basically excluding a player base that only wants to play them. And when these type of decks don't exist, that means the metagame is faster and it's harder to build these type of value decks because by the time you actually get to use value, you're often just dead. And with the release of Demon Hunter, we saw this at the most extreme of just being consistently dead on turn 4, 5, and 6. And that means value does not exist at all. And when value doesn't exist, the mayor of Value Town has really nothing to enjoy and therefore won't play Hearthstone anymore. On top of this, we have seen a metagame for quite some time. With the release of Fractured and Alterac Valley, it has been less of an extent of a combo meta, but still there has been a combo meta. And the issue is that when there is a combo meta in the format without drastic changes like a rotation, which will be coming soon with the next expansion release, there's always going to be some type of combo meta game. And on top of this, with the combo meta game, there is an insane amount of card draw potential in the format. which means even if you're playing some kind of control deck, a lot of decks are able to refill their hand very quickly, which means there's a never-ending onslaught of resources. And that's the one thing Control had over a lot of the decks in the format, is that they were slower, but they were able to build up resources to react to what your opponent is doing until they didn't have a hand anymore. So Control is just so much weaker than it used to be, while aggro decks are getting stronger and stronger, with combo decks also being in the format that just basically counter these.
On the installations, the entire work area is carefully checked. This is done by Dräger gas analysts who are notified by fax of where they are to be deployed. For their own protection, all gas analysts carry the XAM 5000. Equipped. First, the gas analyst conducts an explosive gas and O2 measurement using the XAM 7000 gas detector combined with a floating probe. After a few moments, he has the precise measured values. The display shows immediately that there is no risk of explosion here. The readings are documented immediately and later presented to the plant operator. Based on the individual circumstances on site, another measurement is performed according to the measurement strategy. This time, the gas analyst uses the Dräger Chip Measurement System CMS. With this instrument, he can conduct substance-specific measurements, and it's precisely during this measurement that the device flags up a relevant reading. At 10 ppm, the benzene content where this crew is working is too high. The Dräger gas analyst cordons off the area and initiates additional steps. Now further equipment from the Dräger shop comes into play. The high benzene concentration is to be reduced by means of ventilation. This is done using explosion-proof fans which are installed inside the area where the crew is working. After 24 hours of ventilation, the gas analyst begins his measurement cycle again. Now that the readings are okay, the gas analyst documents his measurement results and passes them on to the operator. He then gives the green light for the crew to begin work again. Firstly, a continuous gas detection system is installed in the area where the work is to take place. Dräger uses the Dräger X-Zone 5000 gas detector area monitoring system. These monitors can be individually.
Hey everyone, Rob Robot Shlomo, looking at the latest article from Vanity Fair about the upcoming Lord of the Rings series. This is the first real good look we've gotten at this. So, Galadriel, played by Morfydd Clark. Don't know who that is. Very attractive looking actress. Galadriel. This is second look Galadriel. Okay. Alright, blonde hair, blue eyed. Got that right. Don't know who this dude is. Can you imagine coming back to such a beloved world, facing a high bar Peter Jackson movies? We're all the time very aware of the massive expectations. Yeah, and you're not going to clear one of them. So, Arthur, Owain, Arthur is Prince Durin. So apparently Lizzo is playing, who is this? Disa? Oh, for God's sake. And Sylvanelf Arondir, played by Ismael Cruz Cordova. I didn't realize there was a diversity initiative in Rivendell. So, oh, brother. Okay, who's this dude? This is half-elf Elrond. Okay, so that's kind of right. They got that kind of right there. Okay, Elrond, and this is... Brown played Forbidden Love. So, okay, interracial romance. All right. Interspecies romance, too. Elf and human. So, we have... that's another checkbox they've ticked off. Okay, Galadriel and Elrond. Okay. Nazini, single mother. Oh, and healer. Single mother. We got a single mother. We got another... checkbox marked off. Okay, teacher points, nomadic fields. You know, really, it just looks like they're throwing the source material right out the window. and I understand this is supposed to be based on it's supposed to be a prequel based on the Great War for the Ring, but if you're not going to get anything right, Charlie Vickers as Halbrand, a new character who is a fugitive from his own past. So really, you're doing the whole Spike Spiegel thing. Listen, if you're not going to try, if you're not even going to try to get this right, then don't even bother. Seriously, and I don't doubt there's going to be gay hobbits now, because
Anna, how you going, bro?
Yo, Z, long time no see. You still working out these shredded ass bra?
It's perfectly sculpted like the gods of Mount Olympus.
What about you come down here to Gold's Gym to kill a fucking workout together, sick cunt?
Oh, well, you wanna fucking go?
Play my game with consistence, persistence, until it's game over. I fight the resistance. Until it's game over, I fight the resistance.
For ladybugs all over the country, this yearly gathering is a once-in-a-lifetime event, the culmination of ladybug existence. It starts as the cold weather sets in, wherever they live. Until now, these California ladybugs have been feasting on aphids. But when the weather turns, this feast of aphids will disappear. That's a signal for the ladybugs. Time to go. They lift up like little helicopters, over the garden, over the city. Up high, the wind takes over, blowing them toward the nearest mountains. Scientists think previous generations left pheromone tracks, chemicals secreted through their feet like a trail of breadcrumbs for them to follow. By late fall, it's on. Their rusty color is a warning to predators. We taste terrible. For the first time in their normally solitary lives, they find themselves in a ladybug bacchanalia. They're all over each other. As winter creeps closer, they'll hunker down together in tree trunks and underground to hibernate. When spring comes, they'll emerge and take care of any unfinished business. This is their last chance to mate. They only live a year. And then they'll go home, never to return. Next year, another generation of ladybugs will follow in their footsteps.
Without Black Inventions. It's currently the 4th most popular video on my channel, so I thought it would be fun to do a companion piece of sorts. So let's take a look at another video called 15 Inventions Created by Black Americans.
Before Black History Month is over, I wanted to take a moment to give thanks to the POC, pioneers of color, that came before us.
Oh, good grief.
During my research, I was blown away by just how many African American inventions we use on the day-to-day. And it got me thinking just how different life might be if it weren't for Black ingenuity. And though this video could literally be hours long, I narrowed it down to some of my favorites.
So there's your setup. This video is purportedly going to show us 15 inventions created by Black Americans. So let's see if this guy did the proper research. Spoiler alert, he didn't.
The automatic gear shift, Richard Spikes. For those of us who hate driving clutch, we have this guy to thank.
Okay, first of all, Richard Spike's name is spelled wrong, so we're off to a great start. But more importantly, Richard Spikes didn't invent the automatic gear shift. Because if you read the actual patent, Richard Spikes writes, "My invention relates to improvements in automatic gear shifts." In other words, he made mechanical improvements on something that already existed. In fact, he wasn't even the first to improve on it. That would be Henry R. Hoffman, who applied for a patent for automatic gear shift and speed control 8 years earlier and wrote, "My invention relates to improvements in automatic gear shifts and more particularly to the gear shift mechanism of a motor vehicle." So while he may have improved on it in some way, Richard Spikes did not invent the automatic gear shift, which means we're 0 for 1.
America's first clock, Benjamin Banneker. Rumor has it that Ben built his clock after studying a friend's pocket watch.
So reportedly at age 21 or 22, Banneker, after studying a pocket watch, constructed a striking clock made almost entirely out of wood. And on the day of his funeral, his cabin caught on fire, which destroyed the clock.
His family even reported that it ticked until the day he died. Ooh.
The clock was destroyed in a fire. It's not like the clock died of a broken heart or something. Now the claim is that Banneker built a clock almost entirely out of wood or something, and to me, that sounds a little like folklore. But for the sake of argument, let's say that he did. Regardless, there is no proof or documentation that he built America's first clock. Okay, next clip.
Automatic elevator doors, Alexander Miles. Without this, we'd have a lot more awkward encounters at work. You know what I'm talking about.
And I'm sure you're not the source of that awkwardness in any way. And speaking of awkward, Alexander Miles didn't invent the automatic elevator doors. That would be J.W. Meeker, who filed this patent in 1874, while Alexander Miles' patent was filed in 1887. So while Alexander Miles may have improved how elevator doors work, he didn't invent them.
The carbon filament and the electric lamp, Lewis Latimer. Do you know how many times I heard about Edison as a kid?
Yeah, because Thomas Edison was responsible for the first commercial successful light bulbs, you genius. And as I have previously pointed out, Lewis Latimer didn't invent the carbon filament, let alone the electric lamp. What Lewis Latimer and his partner Joseph V. Nichols did do was patent new and useful improvements in incandescent electric lamps. And while Latimer didn't invent the carbon filament, he did file a patent pertaining to improvements in the manufacture of those filaments. And unfortunately, when people overstate Lewis Latimer's role in the evolution of the light bulb, it leads to falsities like the following.
A black man invented the light bulb, not a white guy named Edison. Okay?
81 million votes, guys.
Folding chair, John Purdy. Without this, professional wrestling would be an entirely different sport.
First of all, this is the folding chair that John Purdy patented in 1889. But he didn't invent the folding chair, as this design goes as far back as the Nordic Bronze Age. Now, you might be thinking,
locks, dude. For 4,000 years, locks hadn't changed. This dude rolls along, makes some changes, then we're locking everything up.
no! In 1861, Louis Yale Jr. invented a pin tumbler lock that used a small flat key with serrated edges. Look familiar? Well, it should, because this is what's considered to be the modern lock. But where does Washington Martin figure into all this? Well, he doesn't. In the 1889 patent that Washington Martin filed, his lock featured a mechanism that, when tripped, would force a deadbolt out of the lock. This was Washington Martin's improvement over beveled latches that work like this. Washington Martin's design was to prevent people from being able to use something thin like a knife to jam open a beveled latch. However, this design is not in use today, so while Washington Martin invented a lock, he didn't invent the modern...
You the new girl? Well, I thought so. I've never seen you before. Konnichiwa, I'm David-kun. It's so nice to finally meet you. You look just like my waifu. Anyways, I'm so sorry about the jerks in class. They're all baka and they only want one thing. Not me. I just like to watch my favorite anime, Jujutsu Kaisen, and read manga. Also, I think you're really kawaii desune. I'm sorry. I'm just nervous, okay? It's just... well... it's just... I just want to know if I can suckle your niplets, okay? Well, what do you say?
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave pattern? So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring...
I'm taking you to meet with Danny Wakefield, a trans-masculine single father who gave birth to his baby Wilder 8 months ago. Though he won't go into details about how exactly he conceived, Danny says giving birth to Wilder changed his life for the better.
This is Wilder. This is my miracle baby.
You stand on Papa's tummy? Jump around. Jump, jump, jump around.
So there's a few myths that I learned when I first transitioned. One of those was that testosterone possibly makes you infertile, and that two, you couldn't get pregnant well on testosterone, and both of those are false. I wasn't planning on having a baby. I've always planned on having a baby, but I wasn't actively trying in the moment that I had Wilder. Actually, I haven't shared parts of that story yet, because parts of that story are for Wilder to share, but when I found out I was pregnant, there were definitely some shock and like, okay, how am I gonna do? I'm doing this. We're doing this, but like, also like, yes, we're finally doing this. And there was just no looking back.
One end. Whew. Baby burrito. Whew. My baby can crawl now, y'all. Holy cow. Wilder went from like not crawling to like speed crawling across every room. Like, no joke. I turn around and like 2 seconds later, I'm like, where is, oh, standing up against the couch. There's Wilder. Literally, like, I've entered a whole new level of parenting. Oh. Height. Someone called it a circus. I call it a show. Nothing makes sense anymore now that my baby is crawling. I thought life was hard before.
Prior to having Wilder, I was in a really dark place.
That was me for homecoming my freshman year of high school. You can see how awkward I felt.
What's it like looking back on that?
I'm like, how did I not know? I didn't realize until the age of 25. I'm like, oh, I didn't know because I didn't have experiences around me to help me vocalize and know that there were things that I could do to help me feel more at home in my body. Yeah.
Some of the awkwardness is just like classic teenage awkwardness?
I think it could be, but I think that you don't get to be a classic teenager, right? An average teenager when you're trying to show up in the world as somebody who you're not. That takes up, for me at least, all of my capacity, even though I wasn't aware that that's how I wanted to show up. I knew that I wasn't in the right shell. I just didn't know what that meant, so.
And another streamer, Hatchubby, soon joined them. They went to a few different places, and eventually Kevin went back to Korea while Ginny and Hatchubby stayed for another month until November. COVID then got worse, and Germany shut down all hotels for tourists, which forced them to leave the country. Hatchubby did the obvious thing and returned back to Korea, but Ginny instead decided to go back to Sweden and stay for a few more weeks in Stockholm. This is when I realized something was off. Why would she go back to Stockholm, a literal corona hotspot? She said corona didn't matter because she wasn't going outside anyway, but she ended up streaming most days outdoors. And if she was going to stay inside, why not do that in Korea instead? Many others also questioned her decision, but she just gave weak excuses for everything.
Bad excuses. Thank you for $3.
Bad time zone. Stream EU PC schedule instead of 2 AM streams. No content. Don't go Hongdae/Gangnam 100 time.
Hey!
It's not my fault, it's Korea's fault. Just say
I
you hate
went
Korea
to-
instead, it's more believable.
Cocked. Really wise one. Thank you for 7 months up. No matter how hard anybody wants to say go against my argument, I would say fuck off. You know, it's my decision. I do what I want to do. And yeah.
This is when I started to watch the streams more closely. I was hoping to find something that would give it away, but after 2 weeks, just as she was about to leave, I had nothing more than speculation, and I began to think that maybe for once, Ginny was telling the truth. But then, on the very last day, on the 15th of November, I finally got my break. Portal 2. outside. I got a screenshot of the achievements, which if you check the times, are at the same time that she was live. Now that just doesn't make sense. Some explanations she could give are that her Steam got hacked, but that would be impossible as she had gotten hacked before and now has two-factor authentication activated. I even remember her talking on stream about how some guy tried to log into her Steam account but got stopped by it. Also, no hacker would log into a streamer's account just so they can play Portal 2. So maybe it was her PC in Korea, and Kevin was playing it on her PC. But that also wouldn't make sense. Why would he get onto his sister's PC in the middle of the night just to play Portal 2? Furthermore, I remember seeing on stream that Ginny did not have the keep me logged in box checked, so he would need to know her password and have her phone to get past two-factor authentication. But then there's one more piece of evidence. That night, Ginny showed up on Discord at 8:23 p.m., a little under an hour after she ended the stream. And if we look back to the screenshot of the Portal 2 achievements, we can see the last achievement unlocked that day was at 8:18 p.m. Quite a coincidence. Almost as if they had just stopped playing when Ginny got back to the Airbnb. So what we can conclude from all this is that someone had been at her Airbnb playing on her laptop while she was away. But we can go a little bit deeper here. Looking at her account, we can see Portal 2 was first played on Friday the 13th of November. Stream will show the total playtime for the last 2 weeks of a game on your profile. Using this, we can keep refreshing the page until we get the exact timestamps of how long Portal 2 was played on her account, which, in turn, gives us the information of when exactly the person was at her Airbnb. 2 weeks from Friday the 13th would be the 27th, but, of course, things don't go the way I had planned. On exactly the 27th, the day I would have started getting the timestamps, her profile goes private. Why did she do this? I'll get to that later. But it going private, of course, was to be expected, and I logged in myself. First, I copied all of her playtime into a text file, and then I saved screen...
You can't be here! You're dead! You're dead! Nom, 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 nom. Nom, 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 nom.
Alright. El último, as we say in Spanish.
Paper plays an important role in many of the products we use every day. It's light, easily storable, and reusable. To produce 2.8 million tons of pulp, and 1.15 million tons of paper annually. April operates in the city of Pangkalan Kerinci, Palawan Regency, Riau Province. We are committed to operating sustainably. Each part of our papermaking process is in line with policies on sound environmental management. Pulp and paper is produced using acacia and eucalyptus trees as raw materials from plantations which are spread across 5 districts in Riau Province that grow 200 million seedlings per year. April operates 4 central nurseries, which are integrated with the Research and Development Department to grow the best tree seedlings in our plantations. In papermaking, there are 3 key processes. The first process is pulping. Harvested trees are transported from the plantation to the woodyard mill area. The wood is put into the debarking machine to remove its bark, which cannot be used in papermaking. Bark and byproducts are utilized as fuel to produce electricity
All
used in
bark,
factories
no bite.
and villages. Subsequently, the logs are washed, cut into small pieces, and cooked in a digester. Lignin is a fiber adhesive substance in the wood, and the cooking process dissolves this lignin substance, resulting in pulp. The next process is to whiten the pulp. The white pulp is dried and packaged in a pulp dryer. This dried pulp is made into sheet form for easy shipping. Pulp is a raw material for derivative products, such as paper, cardboard, and tissue. The water used for washing logs is filtered before being reused to wash other logs. This step is carried out to reduce water usage. April has invested in water recycling and sophisticated processing facilities to minimize environmental impact.